They say that a snake's venom can kill a man in an hour, but the poison of a jealous friend can destroy a soul for a lifetime. If Adanna had known that her own shadow was less dangerous than the smiles of the girls at the stream, she would have never looked back. But envy is a silent hunter, wearing the softest fabric and speaking with a tongue of honey before it digs a grave in the dark. Imagine the village of Oru, nestled deep within the sun-drenched plains of Nigeria. Here, the red earth seems to pulse with life, and the giant baobab trees stand like ancient guardians watching over the yam fields. In the center of this village lived Adanna. She was the only child of humble farmers who worked the soil until their hands were as rough as tree bark. Her father was a man of few words, believing that a quiet life was a safe life. Her mother, Nneka, was the opposite. Her laughter was so loud it could wake the sleeping goats, and her heart was as wide as the Niger River. But Adanna carried a burden she never asked for, a beauty so striking that it felt like a flame in a dark room. Her skin was the color of deep mahogany, and her eyes held the sparkle of stars. In Oru, they didn't just call her Adanna. They called her the Dawn, for they said her smile could bring light to the gloomiest hut. The trouble started with a whisper. Whenever Adanna walked to the stream, a group of girls, Chinwe, Ife, and Amaka, would huddle together like a pack of hyenas. They were the daughters of wealthy traders, and they could not endure that a simple farmer's daughter possessed what their gold could not buy. "See how she carries herself," Chinwe would hiss, splashing water toward Adanna. "She thinks her face is a ticket to the palace." Ife would laugh, a sound like glass breaking. "Beauty is not a harvest, Adanna. You cannot eat your face when the rains fail." Adanna would go home and weep in the corner of her hut. Her mother, Nneka, would sit beside her, stroking her hair. "My daughter," she would say, "the moon does not stop shining because the dogs bark at it. Do not let their bitterness become your salt." Then came the day the king's messenger arrived. The great prince was returning from his travels and intended to find a bride among the maidens of Oru. A royal festival was announced, a night of merriment where every girl was invited to show her spirit. While Adanna's mother excitedly prepared a vintage wrapper for her daughter, the three jealous girls met in the shadows of the forest. "If Adanna dances, the prince will see no one else," Amaka growled. "We must ensure her feet never touch the palace floor." They hatched a plan. They approached Adanna with fake tears and gifts of roasted ube. "We have been cruel," they lied, their voices sweet as overripe mangoes. "Let us be sisters. On the day of the dance, we will take the shortcut through the forest together so we can arrive as a group." Against her mother's warnings, Adanna's lonely heart gave in. She wanted to believe in the goodness of others. On the afternoon of the festival, Adanna dressed in her mother's finest silk. She looked like a goddess stepped out of a dream. The three jealous girls arrived, dressed in bright yellows and reds, hiding their shovels in the tall grass. "This way, Adanna," they urged, leading her deep into the bush where the path grew narrow and the birds stopped singing. Suddenly, the ground vanished. Adanna screamed as she tumbled into a deep, dark pit the girls had spent days digging. She hit the bottom with a sickening thud, the red earth clogging her throat. Above her, the three girls peered over the edge. Their smiles were no longer sweet, they were jagged. "Dance now, beauty," Chinwe mocked, throwing a handful of dirt on Adanna's head. "Let the earth be your prince." They turned and walked away, leaving her in the silence of the grave. The festival at the palace began with the thunder of drums and the flare of torches, but the prince sat on his throne, his eyes wandering the crowd, searching for a light he could not find. Adanna's parents searched frantically, their hearts sinking with every hour. "Where is my daughter?" Nneka wailed to the king. The three girls stepped forward, looking innocent. "We haven't seen her," Ife lied. "Perhaps she was too shy to show her face among royalty." But justice has a way of walking through the thickest forest. A local hunter named Obi, who had been tracking a leopard nearby, heard a faint rhythmic scratching coming from the earth. He followed the sound to the hidden pit and found Adanna, weak and shivering, her beautiful clothes ruined but her spirit unbroken. Obi did not take her home. He took her straight to the palace. The drums were reaching a crescendo when the doors swung open. A mud-covered girl, supported by a hunter, walked into the center of the ballroom. The music died. The prince stood up. With tears in her eyes, Adanna told the story of the forest path and the secret pit. The king roared with a fury that made the palace walls shake. The three girls were brought forward, their legs trembling so hard they could barely stand. When the king's guards searched their compound, they found the shovel still stained with the red earth of the pit. The king's judgment was swift. "You wished for Adanna to be forgotten in the earth. Now you shall be forgotten by this village. You are banished to the far plains where no one shall speak your names or hear your laughter." The prince walked to Adanna. He did not care about the mud on her face or the dirt in her hair. He took her hands and said, "I was looking for a bride who could dance, but I found a woman who can survive the darkness. You are the one." And so, Adanna became a queen, not just of a palace, but of the heart of Oru. The village learned that while envy can dig a hole, it can never bury the truth. For beauty that is only on the skin will fade, but the beauty that survives the pit will rule forever.